Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Music Den. I'm your host, Armando Venditti. Hoping you guys are having a good night and that you're looking after yourselves and one another. We are back with our top five albums of the 1980s. We are focusing on 1985. I am again joined by Mr. Bill Schuster. How are you doing, Bill?
Armando, glad to be here in 1985.
We're going to time travel back, ladies and gentlemen. 1985. Let me put this in a bit of perspective for you. That was the year of Live Aid. The new romantic movement in terms of music is in full swing. Um, that's about it, really. Miami, oh yes, Miami Vice was on the air and it was the number one show for NBC. God help us one and all. So,
I
ladies and
was watching
gentlemen,
it.
there you go. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, we have picked our top five albums for 1985 plus two honorable mentions. So, as is customary with these episodes, I will hand over once again the virtual mic over to Mr. Bill Schuster with his number five.
Thank you, sir.
There you go.
All right. 1985 for me was my last year of being a good kid before my teens really got down and dirty and I started doing things I wasn't supposed to do and getting in trouble and getting into some different stuff, different music and experiences and whatnot. So this is my last year of innocence, so to speak.
Yeah,
That said,
you and the word innocent. Okay, yeah.
well, all
Okay.
right, sir. I'm an angel. See my halo? All right, nobody in my family will vouch for me. Never mind, they know better. All right,
There we go.
back to
There we
music.
go. There we go. There we go.
1985. We're going to start out with a band that I wanted to feature in 1983, but they just got cut out at the last minute. I really dug that album. It was their breakout successful album, and it was essentially a Toto album, but not by Toto. It was by the Tubes, according to the title on the front, but there was a whole lot of Toto members on there, particularly Mr. Steve Lukather, who was playing all that mean guitar on the single "She's a Beauty," and much like he did for "Beat It" for Michael Jackson, among countless others. But that's not the album we're talking about. The album we're talking about here is one that kind of follows up your 1977 number one pick, "Bat Out of Hell," because this is another Todd Rundgren production. Todd Rundgren produced it. He mixed it. He was one of the engineers. He was one of the writers and the musicians. It's the Tubes with "Love Bomb." Look at
Okay.
that big old. How can you get more simple and cartoony great than that? Love Bomb or Love Bomb. Yeah, that logo. Here's the Tubes, though. They're looking kind of like a bunch of almost, I don't know, they're homeless folks gathering around the trash bin with the fire to keep their hands warm, passing
Hmm.
the bottle around. Um, yeah, this is a weird album. Side one was kind of almost as expected, mostly basic rock songs, other than King Tao Tao on guest vocals on Bora Bora 2000, 2000. But I mean, really, stuff like Piece by Piece, Stella, One Good Reason, these are just good, basic, tubesy rock songs. Come As You Are is a lovely ballad there. But side two is where it really gets fun. This is, I don't mean any insult to the Beatles by this because I adore Abbey Road. This is their side two of Abbey Road, or Todd Rundgren's side two of Abbey Road, however you want to look at it, because he had a big hand as he often does. Um, Side two is a bunch of smaller tracks pieced together. They're kind of all over the map. Some of them are kind of disco dancey, some of them are rocking, some of them are lovely, really emotional ballads. Then you have this odd little Muscle Girls track. You have a song called Theme from a Woolly Place, which is just what it sounds like. It's a mashup of Woolly Bully and Theme from a Summer Place, for those of you who know tracks from the 60s there. That
Okay.
extremely different hits from the
Hmm.
60s.
Yeah.
Uh, it's bookended by Night People and Night People reprise. It's really just a fun journey. the Abbey Road thing was just to give you the idea that these songs are bits and pieces that are connected into a whole. It sounds nothing like side two of Abbey Road whatsoever, but it just has that general construction to it.
Okay.
Um, it's meant to be listened as a piece, and it's a lot of fun. It's very 1985. It's very bizarre Tubes and bizarre Todd Rundgren. They made a great match, but this album, it really was a bomb.
Okay.
Unfortunately, it was commercial suicide for whatever reason. It did not follow up the big success of Outside Inside. I
Mm-hmm.
bought it as soon as I saw it in the stores because I loved the previous one so much, even though
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really know it was half-ass Toto at the time.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, this if at all you dug their two David Foster albums, the Completion Backwards Principle and Outside Inside. There's that David Foster name again, just for you, Armando. Um,
Oh, oh.
this one you'll probably dig this one too. It's a lot of fun. It's
Mm.
well worth your time if you can find it.
It's a good choice. I should check that out. Um, I'll get to David Foster in a second. Um, the album previous, is that the album that contains She's a Beauty?
Yes, and Tip of My Tongue was the follow up single.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, that
I've
was
always,
a
I've
fun one.
always liked She's a Beauty. Okay. And yeah, I don't like David Foster. I'm sorry. He is an egotistical, overblown moron. I'm sorry. Always
I
brags
agree.
about, sorry, always brags about his 16 Grammy Awards. Where's your 17th again? Where's your 18th? It didn't happen. Done. I'm done.
You're not wrong, but I admit I do like a lot of the songs that he's been involved in. So I got to be brutally honest there. He is a douchebag, yes, and a
Okay.
very important douchebag. He thinks more highly of himself than certainly anyone else does. But he did have some success for that period of years and some good
Sure
stuff.
enough. Sure enough. But I digress. I hate him. Um,
Fair.
my number five, ladies and gentlemen, we must carry on, is Dire Straits with Brothers in Arms. Um, Massive album for the band, containing the songs Walk of Life, uh, Money for Nothing, uh, title track. Just this album was all over the airwaves, video wise and radio station, like like all over the place, right? Like, and it was a monster hit for the band. Um, it has a combination of like radio friendly tracks, like obviously Money for Nothing, and with Sting doing backup vocals. Sting does appear twice in this list for me. Um, but there's another track on the album on side one, track four, I believe, called Why Worry, which is just a beautiful ballad. And it to me, it's another one of those albums where the one track carries the album for me. And but that's why it's number five. So there you go.
That yeah, I really when I first heard Money for Nothing, that Sting vocal, it was pretty cool the first go round. Um, it's a
Yeah,
nice little gimmick, but after the millionth time, and I frankly I never liked Walk of Life. That was one of those songs. Even at the time, I was like, my God, why this again? And I still don't like it much to this day. It irritates me for
yeah.
whatever
No, I
reason.
know there are other stronger tracks on the album, but I mean,
Yeah, I agree. You mentioned one, Why Worry is quite nice, and I really like your latest trick. Right Across the River is nice.
I forgot
It's
about you.
the non-hits.
I love your latest track. I love that track. Oh my
Yeah,
God. The
that's
sax
gorgeous.
on that. Oh my God.
Yeah,
Like,
I could have
hello.
used more like that and less Money for Nothing and Walk of Life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, overall, I prefer earlier Dire Straits. But
Yeah. I know. I know.
all right, but still, yeah, I mean, it was a monster hit.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was.
All right, my number four was not a monster hit. It was probably maybe even less successful than the Tubes Love Bomb. This band had one very minor hit called Mexican Radio with their original singer. This is with their replacement singer, Andy Preboy. It's their comeback album, which frankly, I like this version of the band a bit better. It's Wall of Voodoo with 7 Days in Sammy's Town. This is just a very cool kind of gothic synth rock, not pop necessarily. They rock in places, but there's a lot of keyboard sounds. They haven't got to that late '80s sound where the keyboards are all just ubiquitous and they all sound alike, and just they're not to that point of irritation yet. There's still lots of cool stuff going on here with the keyboards on this album. It's not just strictly a keyboard album. I don't want to get that point confused. There's a lot of cool guitar work on here also, and Andy Preboy is a strong vocalist, and there's just bizarre lyrics. There's Far Side of Crazy, I believe, was the single. There's also Business of Love, which was a really cool song. Blackboard Sky, I think, also got a little bit of play. They do a cover of Dark as a Dungeon, which I thought this was one of their songs when I had the cassette, because I only owned the cassette for the longest time, like with so many other albums, and the credits were limited if they were there at all. Turns out Dark as the Dungeon is an ancient country song. It's been done by many people. Johnny Cash did it. Willie Nelson's done it. Obviously, this version is a bit different, kind of an almost industrial sort of version of the song rather than the country style, which is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Don't Spill My Courage is the track that closes the album. The chorus is, the Lord took my legs, now it won't help if you pray, so don't spill my courage away. It's about a guy who's talking about how, say you want an interview for me, get
Yeah.
me on your Christian TV, show how much a man can lose. He goes through this idea about people or how they're wanting to use him
Yeah.
for his particular disabilities, but he doesn't want to be used. He wants to be his own man. He wants to keep doing what he's doing, and it's a very interesting lyric and song. The whole album is just this cool. It's very much of its time, and that's a good thing. The follow up was Happy Planet, came out a couple years later. It's a lesser version of this. It's quite good too, but I won't be picking it, so it's not quite that good. But
Okay.
this is a real weird little mini masterpiece. I think I've always loved this album since I first discovered it in the late '80s. I never heard a track on the radio at all. I think it had some minor success in Australia. They actually had an album called The Ugly Americans after Happy Planet that was a live in Australia album, basically doing tracks from these two and their original incarnation of the band. But
Oh, cool.
yeah, they're a lot more than the old Mexican radio. That was a fun song, but I think this is better. It's cool.
Okay. Oh, it's a good choice. I didn't even know the album existed. Uh,
Most people probably don't.
yeah. Oh, it's cool. It's cool. My number four, ladies and gentlemen, is The Cult with Love. Um, this is a follow-up to their album Dreamtime, produced by Steve Brown, who I believe also worked with Wham on their debut album Fantastic. So to go from working with Wham on Fantastic with Club Tropicana and Wham Rap and Young Guns to going to working with The Cult, it's a hell of a mix, from one end to the other. She Saw Sanctuary, try and say that three times fast, was the biggest hit off this album. Um, a mix of gothic rock, art rock, like just heavy hard rock. Again, She Saw Sanctuary, Revolution, Rain. Those were the three main hits from the album. Nirvana starts off the album. Uh, Big Neon Glitter, Love, the title track, another fantastic one. The length of the track, 6 minutes plus, Brother Wolf, Sister Moon. A great album, heavy. Um, I kind of view this album as having a bit of a 60s influence. It's almost psychedelic influence. But again, She Saw Sanctuary on the dance floor, forget about it. And done. Case closed. Amazing. And Billy Duffy as a guitarist, just a powerhouse. And again, Ian Astbury, like, come on, as a vocalist. I mean, and it's unfortunate that these two over the years have had a combative relationship, because Ian Astbury is always, one minute he wants to tour and record with the band, another minute he wants to leave the band. He's too, he's tired of the band. He doesn't want to be around them anymore. Their latest album, Under the Midnight Sun, came out just last year. Fantastic album, but you should check out Love. I also have a 2 CD version of Love, a reissue, and on the reissue is the 6 minute plus version of She Saw Sanctuary. So check it out. It's a fantastic mix of goth rock, psychedelia rock, and just ass-kicking hard rock. So I'm
Cool.
looking forward.
I will admit that I only know the few singles by the Cult that were played on the radio in the late '80s, including "She Sells Sanctuary" and two or three others. But I've never heard a full album by them, so it's good. We are, you can tell as we go along in this that we are hitting different bases, and that's part of the fun.
Yeah,
And I hope when people put stuff in the comments, I hope to see a lot of weird stuff that we haven't picked.
yeah. No,
That's
it's
why
true.
it's fun to see us all go on these different paths here as we go through this musical journey through time. So that's part of the joy of the experience here. Let's yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. My number three is the one I don't have a physical copy for. I haven't replaced my
My
cassette
God.
of this one. Yeah, that's the only one I don't have a copy of here because I had all these on cassette originally. I mentioned them in the last round as an honorable mention, but 85 overall was a weaker year for me. So they actually made my top three. It's REM with their third album, Fables of the Reconstruction, or as some people like to call it, Reconstruction of the Fables. It works both ways. But again, it's a good follow up. There's not a radical difference in their sound. Maybe there's a slight more rocky, upbeat feel to it. There were a number of singles, not necessarily singles, but it got played on the radio. Can't Get There From Here, Driver 8, Life and How to Live It. Those are the three big songs that I got, yeah, drilled into my ears by the rock station in Denver back at this
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
And I enjoyed them quite a bit. I still do, but the whole album's quite good. It's another one in this sweet little run of, again, REM before they became REM,
Yeah,
the big stars.
yeah. Sure enough.
Still just a popular cult band here and damn good at it. It's a solid album all the way through, just as good as Reckoning. So,
Good choice. Good choice. I forgot about that album, Fables of the Reconstruction. Okay. Forgot about that one. Um, my number three is In Excess with Listen Like Thieves. Um, again, uh, I think it sold like um 4 million copies. And this was 2 years before they hit massive success with Kick, with songs like What You Need, just, and that song again, talk about an ass shaker of a track. Um, and what else was on the album? Oh, yes. You have Listen Like, start again. You have What You Need. You have the title track, Listen Like Thieves, which is more of a dance, um, a lot of bass drum and bass guitar on that track. Very another ass shaking track. And the third single from the album, Falling Down the Mountain, Kissing Dirt. Right? I love that track. Just
that's my favorite.
amazing. Very, to me, it's a very atmospheric track, right? And it it's it's very although it's an upbeat track, it's a very, to me, it's very melancholy in its vocal delivery. And there's also the instrumental Three Sisters. And you have the Ferris brothers um in the band. And I, I'm sorry guys, I forget the guitarist's first name, but his staccato delivery on What You Need, amazing, amazing. Um you could see that they were on their way up at this point with the band, right? Unfortunately, they would plateau or peak and plateau with Kick, but this was a good indication of where they were going to go. So that's my number three.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good one. That's my favorite in excess is still my favorite two are Don't Change and the other single that the one thing, yeah, from that same era, the two earlier singles than this,
The
but
one
this
thing,
is
yeah, yeah,
still
yeah, from the album, yeah, yeah,
but yeah, these are this and Kick are both excellent as well.
yeah.
Yeah, good pick. Yeah, these guys got really big for a while there.
And then they just sort of they peaked with Kick. I mean, Need You
Yeah.
Tonight. Come on. I mean, like, but I mean, they after that they just sort of coasted along in terms of album sales, and it's true. I mean, but with Listen Like Thieves again, you could sort of hear where they were going. They had like a momentum, you know. Um, so yeah, that's my number three.
All right. Good pick. Okay, number two. Huh. What's this
Oh,
on my shirt?
oh Lord.
That's right. It's the band you thought was dead when Roger Hodgson left after Famous Last Words in 1982. But wait, there's more. Brother, Where You Bound. Wow, I'm a Roger Hodgson fan, and he is missed, but not on this album. Rick really carries the load here. He has come up with some excellent songs. There's not a bad track on this album, and he has one Mr. David Gilmour guesting on the title track, which is like a 16-minute epic. Uh,
Yep.
this is that period in time where all these classic rock guys were guesting on each other's albums here and there in various projects, which was really cool.
Yeah.
You never knew where anybody was going to appear. So if you can't have Roger Hodgson there on guitar, I mean, David Gilmour is a pretty solid substitute. So yeah,
There you go.
um,
True.
yeah, Cannonball was the single. It's kind of basic, you know, but very strong single, very keyboard dominated, of course, because well, obviously Rick's a keyboard player, so
Yeah.
there's going to be a bit more of that on this album without Roger here. Uh,
Exactly.
yeah, Better Days, I remember got a lot of play, and it's a very political song without picking any sides. It has a lot of sound bites from, in particular, U.S. politicians at the time. You got Walter Mondale, Ronald Reagan, Geraldine Ferraro, I believe George W. Bush also. All the people who were running for president and vice president in the 1984 elections in the United States. There's sound bites from them. So yeah, it's very time locked, but it was pretty effective at the time. I still quite enjoy it. I was very politically aware back then, and so it definitely got my attention. So, yeah,
Yeah.
if you think there was no life after Roger Hodgson, check out Brother Where You Bound. It's well worth your time. Now, the follow up to this that came out in '87, Free as a Bird,
Yeah.
that's a flaming turd. That was possibly my single greatest disappointment ever by a band I loved. I bought that when it came out. I was so excited, a new Supertramp album, and what
Yeah.
the hell is this?
I
He's
know.
lost the mojo.
I know.
But that's neither here nor there. We're not here to shit on things. We're here to talk about things we love. So that's all I'll say on Free as a Bird. But this one's great.
There you go. No, it's good. And Scott Gorham also from Thin Lizzy guests
Forgot about that.
on the track.
Now you got me looking at my credits trying to figure out where he's at here. Here we
It's
go.
fun.
Yeah, he's also on the title track along with David Gilmour.
Yep.
Cool.
Yeah, and the track Brother Where You Bound dates back to 1983 or 82 for Famous Last Words.
Oh, here you go, folks. Here's your special effects for the day.
Yeah, there you go.
There were five on the cover, but Roger's gone. Only four, which is
Oh my God.
interesting. I don't know if they were making a statement there.
Yeah,
Are they calling Roger a monkey? I have no. I'm not.
I have no
I'm
idea.
not gossiping, but I
Uh,
love all these guys. Though I love Roger and Rick and all the rest of the guys. You know,
I know. I know.
Don and Doogie and Bob. They're all great, but
I know.
obviously there's a lot of drama between the camps there. Sadly, which has never been resolved and probably never will be. But
Yeah. No, true
they
enough.
left us with some great music, though.
True enough. My number two, this is going to be a bit of, again, off the beaten path, is from Arcadia with So Red the Rose. Now, Arcadia were a side project that three members of Duran Duran, Nick Rhodes, Simon Le Bon, and Roger Taylor, formed when Duran Duran went on hiatus. Andy Taylor and John Taylor teamed up with Tony Thompson of Chic and Robert Palmer, rest in peace, and formed Power Station. They released their album. And instead of giving Simon Le Bon a break, Nick Rhodes called him up and said, "Pack your bags, we're going to Paris and we're going to write some music." Um, Again, produced by Alex Sadkin. This album is, I would, let's put it this way, the color scheme for the album is black, white, and red. Okay. It's a very European sounding album, very gothic, very art rock, very, just very textured, very layered album. You have guest musicians featuring Grace Jones, David Gilmour on one track called The Promise,
Here he is.
which to me starts out, well, it's second track on side two. On that one track alone, you have David Gilmour and Herbie Hancock on backup. You also have Carlos Alomar contributing rhythm guitar. The album had four singles: Election Day, Goodbye is Forever, The Flame, and The Promise. You also had Sting contributing backup vocals on The Promise. The entire album, 9 tracks. The entire album is fantastic, top to bottom. Um, it is very layered, again, textured. It does have a gothic kind of a feel to it, uh, but also very accessible. Between the two albums of Power Station and So Red the Rose, I always go for So Red the Rose every single time. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. If you can check it out, if you can listen to it on YouTube. Any of these albums that we talked about, you can listen to on YouTube. Okay. But if you can get your hands on a copy of Arcadia So Red the Rose, please do. You will not be disappointed. Give it a chance. Okay. It may not be your cup of tea at first. Listen to it on YouTube. If you like it, go out and get it. You won't be disappointed.
Cool. Now you make me want to check it out. I've been aware of the album all these years, and I like Duran Duran. I bought their early albums, and I've dug some of their later stuff. So I've always respected them and enjoyed them in general, but I've never have actually checked out this album. So yeah, some of the names you mentioned there, the idea of David Gilmour and Herbie Hancock joining them on the same track, that's just kind of mind blowing for me. It's probably not near as great as my mind can imagine that combination, but still, it's just cool the fact that those guys, two
The-
legends from vastly different musical worlds, combined with these guys, which are from another completely different world. I love that kind of melting pot in
that
music.
hybrid, that hybrid
Yeah.
coming together. There, I'm telling you, Bill, if you check it out. Check out the album. You will like it. Again, it's a lot of keyboard atmospheric textures. Um, there's one song called Missing, which is just piano synths and like um uh, I don't want to say samples, but just a lot of atmospheric symphonic keyboards, I would say. Almost sounds like Mellotron. It's basically it's a ghost story, right? And it's just very atmospheric and just takes you on a journey. You really got to check this out. So
I definitely will check that out now.
that's I will send you a copy. I mean, if I, you know, I mean, I'll find it. I mean, yeah, no, it is. It is. It's a good one.
All right. Well, number one, haven't heard from these guys for a few years here, not very many. It's not the first, it won't be the last.
Hmm.
This shouldn't come as any major surprise. My number one is Power Windows by Rush. Funny thing is, a little over 20 years ago, when I first got online back in 2000, I was a member of a billion Rush message boards. I even ran a couple of my own, and we always did polls. And when we ranked the albums up to that point, um, which only went up to Test for Echo at that point, eventually Vapor Trails, but this one was always at the bottom of my list, literally the very bottom. Now it's damn near a top five Rush album for me. It just finally hit me.
Correct.
I wasn't ready for it, I guess, for all those years,
Of course.
but now I absolutely love what makes it different from the rest of the catalog. The sound of this album is just so bright, so sharp, so it's there's a certain, I guess you could say, coldness, brittleness to the sound, but at the same time, it's very warm. It's very human and emotional in spite of all the technological stuff going on, in spite of all the heavy keyboards. These songs are very human songs.
Yeah.
Getty's voice is great here. Neil puts in some of his best lyrics ever on this album. Guess what? When I first heard The Big Money at the time when it came out, I was not impressed. I usually am not a fan of those kind of songs that, big money this, big money that, big money this, big money
Yeah.
that. I
Yeah.
didn't. It seemed less than what Neil was capable of. I totally dig it now, and I get the big booming effect of it, and it sounded great live hearing them in concert do it. But uh, yeah, this whole album is kind of unique in their catalog. And Hold Your Fire continues somewhat this sound, but not in quite the same way. This is really an outlier. Um, the cool back cover with the kid.
Hmm.
He's
Hmm.
watching you.
Hmm.
Um, Manhattan Project is another popular song, and it's a great song, about the people who created the atomic bomb and the people who dropped the atomic bomb, both of them on Japan toward the end of World War II. And pretty serious subject matter, obviously,
Hmm.
and very effective. One of my favorite Neil lyrics is in here, kind of describes my feelings about nationalism in general. It talks about flags essentially, and said, "Better the pride that resides in a citizen of the world than the pride that divides when a colorful rag is unfurled."
Ooh,
That's short, and sweet. That's kind of the way I view things, and Neil hit my
yeah.
sweet spot with that. Um, Emotion Detector is one that doesn't get talked about a lot when this album comes up, but it's just about my favorite on the album. I don't know if I can pick one favorite, but that's close. And right to the heart of the matter, right to the beautiful part. Illusions are painfully shattered. That's where the story starts. I mean, that's just, yeah. And Alex's guitar on that song is perfection. He gets, according to some people, he gets lost in the mix on the albums from this era. I don't think so. I really think he finds plenty of space. He picks his parts and applies just what's needed. I know he was frustrated apparently, but what he does here works quite well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
He
So
serves the songs. He's not showboating so much, which Alex showboating is not a bad thing by any means. So
no,
I don't give the wrong impression there. He's one of my favorite players ever. But this is a different sound from Rush. If you've tried it before and it wasn't to your liking, give it another chance. Come at it with an open mind. You might have the same result that I eventually got after I tried again and again, and it really hit me. And now, yeah, I adore this album. Obviously, it's my number one album of the year, and it's one of my absolute favorite albums for my favorite band. So there you go. Power Windows.
yeah, no, it's a good choice. It's a good choice. Um, yeah, Alex, just quickly, Alex Lifeson, from what I've heard, um, on the documentary Behind the Lighted Stage, um, had said that he really didn't, not that he didn't like the mid 80s albums, but he thought that he could be, that his guitar work could be more prominent in the mix, kind of a thing, right? Um, and yeah, they got it, they fell into a trap like most people did in the 80s in terms of the 80s production and the tech and the engineering and the sounds and the textures that they came up with, in terms of drums and stuff. Um, but there you go. I digress. We must carry on. My number one, ladies and gentlemen, is Tears for Fears with songs from the Big Chair. Um, I gotta tell you, sorry,
No, go ahead. I was just clearing my throat. Sorry.
sorry. I gotta tell you guys, uh, this is a fantastic album. Their second release, they were under pressure from record company from Polygram to come up with a hit album after The Hurting from '83. In order to placate the record company, they came up with a single in '84 called The Way You Are, which they hated. Uh, but Polygram and Phonogram were like, single, give me a single, give us something to work with. It is not indicative of what came on songs from the Big Chair. You had Shout. I can give you the track listing. Shout, The Working Hour, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, Mother's Talk. That's side one. Side two, I was gonna say Broken. I Believe, Broken, Head Over Heels, segues into Broken Live at Massey Hall for like a minute and something. Then the final track, Listen. It is pop, it is rock, it is, some would say, uh, uh, 80s progressive, not progressive in the traditional sense, but progressive in the way they wanted to bring the music across, and that they were going way beyond what people thought they could do. Okay. The title itself comes from a movie called Sybil, starring Sally Field in 1976. Okay. Um, just an amazing, eclectic mix of songs that features musicians such as Mel Collins from, there's the progressive rock angle from King Crimson. Um, just an amazing album. Every song is killer, no filler. If you really want to hear a good album from start to finish, get yourself a copy of Songs from the Big Chair. If you can get the, I think it's like, I have it. It's a 5 disc deluxe version of the album. You get the album. You also get B-sides, remixes, and a couple of documentaries from the band at the time. Um, there was n there is nothing wrong with this album. Every song, in my very humble opinion, is perfection from start to finish. So please check it out. That's my number one.
Very nice choice. That is an excellent album. Frankly, it was really close to making my list, but and it's probably a better album than some of the ones on my list. But The ones I have just have more of a deeper, longer personal connection for me, which is why
There's
they
nothing
do
wrong
the
with
album.
that.
But it
Yeah.
is a masterpiece. It is a damn good album. And yeah,
There's,
those singles were perfection. Oh
oh
God,
yeah. Oh
I
yeah.
love
I
those.
mean, the one track, the working hour in the chorus. We are paid by those who learn from our mistakes. Meaning they gave the record company um, the track The Way You Are. It was a failure, but they still made money off of it. We are paid by those who learn from our mistakes. You know what I mean? So there's a lot of deep meaning. There's like a lot of subtext going on in the music and in the lyrics, you know, which a lot of people kind of tend to forget because it's glossed over as a pop album, right? Ain't nothing pop. There's pop, but I call it thinking man's pop, right? So anyway, that's my number one.
Minor spoiler alert for those who are playing the long game, might stay with us for a while on this journey. I will be mentioning them at some point in time. I'll just leave it at that for now.
Good to know.
All right, but my first honorable mention, we'll go with the more predictable one first. People who've been following the series or seen me on anything know I love this band. This is often considered their worst or second worst album. Yeah, I don't think that at all. I won't say it's near the top, but it's a fine album. Club Ninja by Blue Oyster Cult, with the classic chrono symbol in the form of a space station on this cover. Very cheesy, very 80s,
Yeah.
matches the album. Uh, we have here Donald McDermott Roser, excuse me, Eric Bloom, and Joe Bouchard left from the original band. Alan Lanier has jumped ship and won't be back for a bit, but this is Joe's last actual album with the band. He's credited on Imaginos with something, but that's a whole other story. He wasn't
Mhm,
really
mhm,
there.
mhm.
So this is the first version of what is known amongst fans as 3OC. Uh,
Okay.
this is a very 1985 album. The single was "Dancing in the Ruins," and supposedly it was not written by the band. There's a number of songs here not written by the band, which is unusual that they didn't have a part in writing some of this. Um, "Dancing in the Ruins" was known as kind of a follow up attempt to Burning for You. I've never really seen it that way though. It was kind of its own animal. It was a really cool single. It had a nice video, a
Yeah.
post-apocalyptic thing, kid on a skateboard, all this stuff in the ruins. It's a very nice song. It's a catchy song, but again, it's one that they didn't write. There's a couple Bob Halligan Jr. songs on here that typically get crapped on the most: "Make Rock Not War" and "Beat 'Em Up." I like "Make Rock Not War" quite a bit, actually, despite the cheesy chorus. If you get away from the whole "Make Rock Not War" chorus, it's actually a nice little anti-war song if you get into the rest of the lyrics, and
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
works for me. It definitely worked for me then. "Perfect Water" has gone on to forever appear in their live sets.
Mhm.
Donald Roser, I think, has been on record as saying that he's not necessarily happy with this version. He also did a version of it with his three-man band, the Red and the Black, here in the late 80s. They did a version of Perfect Water also, but yeah, Bluish Cult plays it live now. I'm quite happy with this version. This is the version I first encountered when this album came out,
Mhm.
and it's perfect for me, just like the water. Needs no change. Howard Stern does a little voiceover on "When the War Comes," and despite its funky, cheesy ooga chaka in the midst of the song, it's still a really cool vibe to the song. It's kind of a slow, moody song. "When the war comes," talking about the bones of our oppressors, and
Okay.
it's very neat. This whole album is kind of largely over the top and cheesy, but often that's when Blue Oyster Cult is at their best. You
Perfect.
can't always take them seriously. They're a fun band.
Hmm. Hmm.
sometimes when they get a little too serious, they kind of lose the plot. So this, I get why people don't like this album, and again, as is often the case for me, that's exactly why I do like this album.
Mhm.
It will never be my favorite Blue Oyster Cult album, but it has a place in my heart. I will happily play it from start to finish and not want to skip a song. So yeah, it deserves to be part of the catalog. Had to be an honorable mention for me.
It's fine. It's fine. And you know what? All your points are valid. I mean, just a quick note, like songs from the big chair. My brother-in-law used to take me out shopping for records once a year. Like we'd make it like a night of it, right? And Songs from the Big Chair was one of the albums I bought one time. Like, when you took me out, we, planned it all out and go on a Friday night and just go spend money. That was our thing. So that album too has that kind of a sentimental attachment to me as well. So that's a good one. Um, my first honorable mention is the Water Boys with This Is the Sea. Water Boys, British Irish rock folk rock band. Uh, the lead off single from this album was "The Whole of the Moon." Um, Now, when I listen to this album, sound wise, it almost has like a wall of sound, very layered, very sort of intricate, uh, use of what sound like horns and keyboards and guitars and stuff. And this song, for some reason, just hit me like really hard when I heard it. I recently was made aware of it was again about a year and a half ago, and I just looked it up on YouTube. I'm like, this has got to be the song, and I listened to it. It's like, yep, that's it. And it was played on Much Music in Canada quite a bit, a lot. Lead vocalist Mike Scott. He doesn't sound like Bob Dylan in any stretch of the imagination, but when I hear him, I kind of think of Dylan. I don't know why. He doesn't sound like Dylan at all. Um, it's certain songs take you back to certain places in time, right? That's what this song does for me in this album. Other songs, a note, The Pan Within, Spirit, Old England, they're all fantastic, right? So that's my first honorable mention, Water Boys.
Cool. Actually, just a while back, I bought a used copy of their album. I believe it's called Fisherman's Blues, but I still have not played it yet. It's one of those that's on the waiting pile, but I've always been kind of curious. I've heard good things
Yeah,
about it. So,
yeah,
yeah, obviously a different album, but I'm pretty sure that came out not long after this one, like a year or two later, maybe.
yeah,
But yeah, kind of makes me even more curious to check it out now. Yeah, it's sitting right over here next to me, actually. But
yeah.
yeah, cool. Yeah,
Okay.
we're totally going on all kinds of different tracks. This is good. We're
Yeah,
covering lots of different bases. So, all
I
right,
noticed that. I've
all right. I
no,
was pretty long-winded on my previous honorable mention. It was yeah, you pretty well got a full write-up. I'll
don't
try to
don't
keep it a little shorter on this.
don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
This is another one of those David Gilmour appearances. These guys collaborated more than once in the 80s. It's Pete Townsend, White City, a novel. This is an outstanding album. You know, Pete likes his concept albums, obviously, Tommy, Quadrophenia, blah, 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 Iron Man, musical. Yeah. Um, this had a lot of songs on that played on the radio where I was at Give Blood, Brilliant Blues, Face to Face, Crashing by Design, all got played to death on the rock stations, and I loved it. They all sounded good, and the rest of the album is pretty well as good as those songs. You can definitely hear Gilmore on Give Blood. It's that same kind of sound he uses in Run Like Hell. That sharp, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Whoa,
he
hey,
has
there's
got
Gilmore on there.
a distinct sound. Yeah,
Yeah, it's not his pretty bluesy sound. It's his nasty gonna cut you sound,
yeah,
and it worked great with Pete's songs here, especially. I mean, the lyric "Give Blood" is pretty. pretty brutal. Yeah, if you dig Pete, you dig the Who, you got to check this out. And this,
Yeah.
yeah, good stuff. My favorite Townsend solo album, probably.
No, you're right. You're right. Fantastic. Good choice. My last honorable mention for 1985,
Yes.
ladies and gentlemen, is Saga with their 85 release Behavior. Um, this was after the release of Heads or Tails. Um, this was when the popularity started to go down in North America, unfortunately. Featuring the main hit, What Do I Know, which was played quite heavily on Canadian radio and Canadian music television. Other songs of note are Take a Chance, second track on the album. The instrumental, The Nine Lives of Miss Midi, Midi. Okay. Um, this um, shows the band moving away from their version of progressive rock into more of a streamlined uh, pop format. The chapters um, tracks here, uh, are not on this release. They would pick up the chapter series in the late 90s with, I believe, the album Full Circle in 1999. Um, there's a lot of there. This album is good. Is it their best? No. Mm, You know, um, this was also where Steve Negus and Jim Gilmore were having issues with the band. Steve Negus didn't like the way things were going. There were rumors that he and Jim did not like the way management was going. But according to Steve Negus, uh, he was losing interest in what they were doing in the studio. He'd said in an interview that they were doing drum tracks and they kept wanting him to do a certain, hi-hat in a certain way. And it kept going over and over again. And he said, you know what, guys, all of my tracks are here pre-recorded. Here you go. I'm going to the beach. Because he got frustrated with what they were doing. Um, Apparently they were asked, Steve Negus and Jim Gilmore were asked to leave the band by Michael Sadler. Um, but that's neither here nor there. This album is good, but is it their best? No, that's why it's an honorable mention. What Do I Know is still a fantastic track. Uh, what Do I Know has the lead off lyric, you were once my vice, now you're just like ice. That with a lead off lyric like that, I'm in. You know what I mean? And um, the bands do reach a point where their popularity does tend to sort of peter out, and this was where it was for the band at this point in time. But it's still a good album.
Yeah, it's a good pick. That Yeah, they were pretty well dead in the water already in the States here. Yeah, Heads or Tails was pretty much their last gasp here
Yeah,
for their, unfortunately. Um,
yeah. Well,
yeah.
guys, there you have it. Our five top five um, top five albums for 1985, and two honorable mentions. It's been a long day, guys. I want to thank Bill Schuster for joining us for this episode and joining me specifically, as he is my partner in these episodes. And this idea for these episodes did come from Bill 100%. Um, so, guys, in the comments below, put your top five albums of 1985 and one or two honorable mentions, or however many you want to put. And, just give us your input. We've enjoyed your feedback so far, and we
Absolutely.
want to keep it going. So, and I also want to give a quick shout out to Bob, who brought me in a tea for the last episode. I forgot to mention him. Want to give all props to Bob, and we will see you soon with another video. So please look after yourselves and one another, and we'll be back soon with another video. Bye for now.